What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the firewalls special episode called Ask a CISSP. So I am here with Ahmad Austin. This is our first time meeting on the podcast, so I greatly appreciate you joining me. So this is part of the bigger podcast, The Other Side of the Firewall. We're now syndicated, so we're on WDJY 99.1 FM in the Atlanta metro area, as well as the TuneIn app worldwide, and then your podcast platforms of choice. I always forget to say that up front, so please continue to check us out on a weekly basis. We'll be going all the way through the holidays. This year, we've hit about 24,000 listeners each week. So we greatly appreciate that, as well as we have almost 13,000 downloads on the podcast. So we are continuing to grow, and it's because of great guests such as Ahmad Austin, and we're going to break down his background, his experience. We're going to talk about his company as well as his upcoming book. But without further ado, sir, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Ryan. What about yourself?
Man, I can't complain. So I don't know about where you're at, but here in Florida, man, it's considered a cold snap. So I wake up, it's like 40, and then by afternoon it's 70 again. But it's still a shock.
I look like that because I say, okay, really cold in Florida, but okay, 40,
Yeah.
that's respectable. That
It's
is
cold for
cold.
us, right?
It's cold for us too. It's actually the high was about 40, and the low was I think 27 today. Oh
No,
yeah,
I can't do it, man. Like I
feel
keep
the same
saying,
way.
like Georgia and Virginia, like I miss having more space and having a basement, right? Because you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
have that in Florida. But I
Oh,
don't miss
really?
the cold.
See, I didn't know that. See, I lived in Alabama for a while, and you couldn't have a basement in Alabama, so I didn't know that was a thing in Florida.
Yeah, too much swamp, man. You mess around and you won't. They won't be able to find you. But I definitely want to talk about your background. So we did a little warm up while we were talking pre-podcast, and you have an interesting story, as well as we kind of have similar backgrounds. So I kind of want to go through that. Where you're from, and then your start in information technology and cybersecurity.
Okay, definitely. Born and raised in Decatur. So for those people that don't know where Decatur is at, it's on the east side of Atlanta. Moreland Avenue, that's the start of the end of the east side and the beginning of Decatur, Georgia. That's where I'm from, born and raised. And I say that with pride because that's you meet a lot of people from Atlanta, but Atlanta and Decatur are pretty special in the sense that
Gotcha.
just the history, the Black history that we have. You know, a lot of schools named after influential Black leaders. So, you know, that city's near and dear in my heart. Like what you alluded to, I went into the military about a year and a half after high school. And it's funny, I went into the military. You know what this means in the military, Air Force listeners know I went in open general.
Okay. Yeah, you gambled.
Yeah, big gamble. I didn't know though, you know. But thankfully I wasn't a military police officer. I ended up being a life support technician. Just in short, that we maintain and issue the pilot's combat equipment that is not transferable to the outside world. Thankfully, after 3 years, I got to become a communications operator, comm ops. So that was my introduction into computers. So
That's awesome. So you have even more similarities to Shannon, because he started out on the flight line, right? So
Really?
he worked the flight line before he crossed over into communications. So like you guys have like a really good, cross section of experience, right? Like you got to see the real Air Force before you switched into IT, and you got the comfy life.
I can see how you say that, Ryan, the real Air Force. It wasn't so much what they call it, the Army. It wasn't so much the chair force
Right.
that I got introduced to. But yeah, I'm curious. I would want to ask Shannon what aircraft he worked on.
I want to say 16s, but I
Okay.
could, man, listen, I'm terrible with aircraft.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if I didn't fly in it, I don't know what it is.
But we got enough acronyms and things to know and remember on the IT side. So I don't expect you to know aircrafts. But so in 2003, that was my introduction into computer operations. And I'll say this for anybody in your audience that is beginning to get into IT and it might be challenging for them, or they're thinking about it and it's like, oh, this seems like it's too tough. When I retrained into computer operations in 2003, I did not know how to copy and paste. So since then, of course, I've learned a lot in, couple of degrees and a bachelor's and master's and CISSP, this and that. But those first 2 years, they were very challenging because I did not know computers. I just had a good ASVAB score that said that I could go into the computer career field.
Right, you had
So,
the aptitude to say, "Okay,
sure.
yeah, he'll pick it up," which you did. I mean, it obviously, leaps and bounds.
Oh yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, no, definitely, I picked it up, but it was from becoming a student. So I say that to anybody out there: if if you set your mind to be a student of IT, there is no limitation to where you can go, where this career field can take you. So, well, when I got out the military in 2007, and I started working as a contractor. Now, this is where our time, or our what we were talking about before we got on started the podcast. I was working at the 26th Network Operations Squadron in Montgomery, actually as a firewall technician.
Okay,
And for those that don't know, the 26th Network Operations Squadron, that's what I would call the first line of defense for all military bases, all Air Force bases worldwide. So that was pretty cool to be able to, that being my first opportunity outside of the Air Force. So I worked there. I started working there as a employee for a contractor, and then in 2009 or 2010, they afforded me the opportunity. The prime on that contract afforded me the opportunity to actually, through my own company, work as a lead. So I was a liaison between the Air Force PMO office and the 26 Network Operations Squadron, and
oh,
I
that's
had a
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool
Yeah,
because it was just one of those situations where, so let me set up my company and position myself, and what else can I say other than no? So,
right. Yeah,
you
that I
know,
mean, coming from an entrepreneur standpoint, like, you really did take that leap, and it's awesome they facilitated that bridging between the 2 because then now you're building your past performance and, you already kind of know the people and what to do with it, so that's a great trajectory to go on.
yeah, no, looking back on it, I never took it for granted even then, but looking back, I see how special it was, especially knowing that many other people didn't at the time, weren't a lot of that opportunity, but really after I did it, I saw other people, but were able to, but it's just one of those things, I think, where you see someone, so you see it's possible. So it's all right, let me do it. And then it becomes, is one of those things where it becomes a little more common. Well, people after you don't get that much resistance, because there was resistance. I'm not gonna make it
Right,
sound like, like it
right.
was. It was a lot of convincing that had to take place. But from there, I was able to manage a team of 8 engineers there, and then, and you're familiar with this, there were a couple geographically separate
Mhm.
engineers, like at Bartsdale, and it was another location I can't remember at the time.
Thing like Right Pat had some people, and there was another one, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Damn right, Pat. With the other two, it was like two resources. You might have hit on the money, Ryan. And so 2003, I did that until I decided to move back to the Atlanta area. So I moved back from Montgomery, Alabama to Atlanta, and that's when my first, uh, my introduction to the private sector, which you and I were talking.
Right.
It's a little different.
The Wild Wild West.
Right, right. But that was a learning experience too. I got to work with some clients like Incom and Belk Department Store, the headquarters, and some banks and some hospitals. So to name a few, that was pretty cool. And then I became a vendor for the state of Georgia, so I've supported some state agencies as well. Which that's another thing too, in terms of just how they do business, how an organization does business does equate to how they apply security or their risk tolerance.
And I don't believe you mentioned the name of your company.
Oh, yes, I did not. It is Cy 3 Security. So that's spelled CY and then the number 3 security, Cy being short for cyber. And then, of course, us security geeks, 3 being the security triad.
Oh, there you go. Okay. No, that's dope. Yeah, because when I saw the name, I was like, I wonder what it means.
So I got a little elevated conversation with that one. But
Okay.
yes, you can look at our website and the services that we provide on side3security.com. But those services include, of course, risk management. Really, I say no matter what role or what service we're providing, it's around risk management. But risk management, vulnerability management, just cybersecurity, coaching, virtual CISO support, and of course now AI governance. Just really working on advising organizations on how to navigate this new landscape. That's how I would summarize the many services around cybersecurity that my company provides.
No, that's awesome, and you do seem to provide a pretty robust, services offering menu. But it piqued my interest, right? So, are you having the same issue that I've run across, where you're working for maybe a small business or a medium sized business, and they're just starting to get their feet underneath them. They're just starting to get this is what risk is. This is how we like we did the business impact analysis. Now we're starting to figure out how to conduct business. But now we just want to throw AI in there. All of a sudden, you're like, yo, you don't have the basics yet. You want to throw AI
Right,
on top of
right.
it?
I'm sure there's a strong analogy there, Ryan, like that people will understand if you're trying to do that. But yeah, no, definitely, I dealt with that. And sometimes, to be honest with you, if the organization has the appetite or really the appetite and the funding to do it the right way, actually catching that organization at the inception of, their company, or when they're really looking to add cybersecurity, that's often that's not a bad place to meet them at. Now, but if they're not, they just want to throw a little money at cybersecurity. Oh, yeah, by the way, we want to do this thing called AI. I heard about these AI agents that we can use. If they're approaching it from that angle, you're not starting off too good. That's
Right.
that's a tougher conversation.
Right. I remember being in the steering committee one time for they were, I can't remember if they're fintech or education, but they were trying to do it the right way. They were like, hey, we
Sure.
need to do our assessments, we need to do analysis, we need to make sure it makes sense for the company, and also we need to get our policies together. We're like, oh, this is perfect. And then in the meeting, talking to production, they were like, oh yeah, we're already using it. It's like, oh man, you're like, no, like we got to dial it back now.
That's what we talk about when operating these silos. One, production doesn't know what the operations is doing. Operations definitely doesn't know what legal's doing, and legal's not communicating with engineering, on any new regulatory mandates that are coming down that's going to affect them. These silos. I mean, that's one thing that the book that is going to be my book that's going to be published soon is talking about. Like, that's the one message. All right, that has to stop. We cannot operate in silos.
Yeah, and I think
Organization.
the title of your book really sums it up really well. Like I like how you keep things short and simple and impactful and meaningful, right? Like my book title is way too long. So but I
Wait,
didn't think
so
about that until it was too late. So what's the name of your book, and then kind of break down what it's its messaging.
definitely. Well, it can get long. So when I when I communicate with you, I gave you the short version. So it's called the Boundaryless Enterprise. Okay, short version, and subtitle: Redesigning Oversight for the Age of Intelligent Systems. So you see how I
Okay.
got a little long.
But you summed it up really well at the beginning though, right? Like this is the general concept, then we get more specific. So you did a good job.
I appreciate that.
With the naming of it. And I know we talked about it, so it should be out before Christmas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the
That's got to be exciting.
It is. I mean, it's my first book, and I feel that is meaningful and it's timely, because I've gone to, just we go to conferences, and I've gone to a few AI conferences over the last 3 years, and it amazes me and I'm humbled by, this room full of big brains, CIOs, CISOs, director level, and that first year I went 3 years ago, that was the first conference I was in where people are really humbling themselves. Like, okay, tell me about this AI and what do we need to do? I was there. That was me 3 years
Right.
ago. As the years fast forwarded, you could tell the room it was more, pointed questions and scenario use cases that were presented. So, okay, these big brains were trying to figure it out, and then fast forward to now, a lot of people have figured it out, but a lot of people still haven't.
When it comes to scoping in what Cy3 is trying to make an impact within, as well as the book, what is the general like messaging, right? Like you're trying to obviously, make things efficient, make things affordable, make things that work, right?
That's right.
What's the special sauce with you and your brand?
I had a special sauce. I like how you put that. One thing I like to say is that we focus on providing solutions and not dwelling on problems. We got a problem case. Okay, let's define that problem case, and now let's get to work. And in doing so, I think it's very important whether whoever we're communicating with, whether it's a CEO or it's a system admin or it's someone a decision maker at any point in an organization, whoever we're communicating with, allowing that person to feel relevant, because the goal is to get the message across, is to have good communication. I think it's too much of in IT, especially when we're talking about this, how we're describing this change in way of looking at managing risk. You have to present it in a way that's palatable for these leaders that, let's just face it, they don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to feel like they don't know what they're doing, but you want to get the message across. Like, okay, let's look at doing things in a different way.
No, it makes perfect sense. So in my current role, we really try to get to leadership understanding resiliency, right? From the risk perspective. And it's not necessarily challenging with my current company because they're very tech forward. But what I saw in the past was kind of resistance because you have to admit that we may fail, right? The portal may go down or, equipment may fail, or we may be, the victims of a ransomware attack or something to that scale. But we need to make a preparation and meaningful decisions to make sure we bounce back quickly. Because every second, every minute, every hour takes away from our reputational value and how people perceive us on the client-facing side. It takes away from the bottom line, right? Depending upon how we make our money. And then it can also be costly to get back up and running. So I think a lot of, those in charge are starting to look at risk a little bit differently. And it's great to see a company like Cy3, making that meaningful impact and trying to get them to understand, right? Like you are empowered to do this. Like, in the sector always comes down to the bottom line. But
That's right.
at the same time, like, what are you willing to risk by not complying or by being owned in some regard or losing data, fines, fees, more regulation, like these things all, will beat you up in the end if you don't just spend the capital up front to try to mitigate or remediate.
100%, because, and in doing that, I like how you broke that down, like the message that you seek to get across. It's like right now, organization A, it may be okay. It may be all right. What about a year from now? Because it doesn't take, someone to be able to look into the future to be able to see that this AI age that we're in,
right,
it's moving fast, and it's moving faster than anything that we've ever experienced before. I mean, so it's one thing when I do like the cyber CEO or CIO coaching, it's something I ask a person, a CIO, either CEO, how many IT resources do you have in your organization? And they might answer, we have, 100 resources. And the next question I ask them, how many human?
okay,
And that really, all right, now they're thinking. And that's the point, is if they answered the question, they probably, based on their thought process when they answer me the first time before the follow-up, is it'll probably be 100. I'm sure it'll be 100 because they're not thinking about machines that have identities that spin up and spin down faster than you can even audit them as resources.
right, and they're not being onboarded and offboarded in that time either.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, that's really clever because I would have said the same thing. I'm like, yeah, we got 100 dudes in the back.
How many AI agents do we have? Okay, how many do you plan to hire within the next year? Like you said, though, no onboarding, offboarding, which if one looked at it, would that make someone feel more comfortable that they are bringing on or leveraging a machine resource that does not go through the scrutiny that a human resource goes through, but yet has more power than can do more than a human resource, faster than a human resource, and cannot be effectively audited, at least not manually, by a human resource. That wouldn't make me feel comfortable.
Yes, it's pretty terrifying. And they have the ability to interpret, right? Because I talked to, I had Alan Wesley on the show, and he was talking about MCP servers and things like that to help to mitigate their ability. Because all they want to do is they just want to learn, they want to consume, and then they want to produce. And oftentimes they just want to make you happy. Is somewhere in his DNA, right? It's like, I want to give you a good answer, but it might not be necessarily the correct answer, or it may be they have inherent bias because it picked up from somewhere else, right? Like some message, some email, some PowerPoint that caused it to veer left when it should have veered right in some regards. So it's pretty terrifying, but people are just like, nope, fire these teams, replace them with AI immediately.
Right. Okay. What kind of planning is going in place with this? With this call to fire all the humans, and that's, so I don't want to paint the picture like I'm embracing all of this AI technology. It's just a matter of doing it the right way. So, in my book, I talk about like architecture governance, or a better way to governance through architecture. So, which is faster. So what that would mean is, for example, basically using machines to monitor and govern machines. We would kind of picture us as the coach. We we define the parameters, we define the governance. Let's just say in AWS, for example, for the workloads, for the serverless functions, we define the auditing, we define the behavioral triggers, all these things we define, and we let the machines do what they do. And our job is also to go back in and periodically audit for what they call drift.
Okay.
Like what you alluded to, you mentioned even with the bias in AI, because the bias you might analyze the AI model today and drift occurs. Like you said, they want to consume, they want to learn. So 4 months from now, it might drift from the baseline that we assessed it at, reassessed and approved it at 4 months or today. So we have to audit that. But our goal isn't to, like the old way that we've been doing things, like do these quarterly audits for governance purposes. Like, no, that's not going to work. They spin up, you go to the AWS, right, Azure even, they spin up in workloads, might be thousands of workloads a day, hundreds of agents working a day. So I'm going to do an audit quarterly.
No, I never thought about that way. Yeah. Cause it's the computational scale is doing way more than it ever happened before.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess you would also see drift happen a little bit faster or exponentially faster because of how many instances have spun up and what is trying to compute and what is trying to output. So yeah, I never thought about it that way. Like it's some scary stuff.
You put it right when you call it scary. It's like it's amazing, exciting, and scary at the same time. But it's pretty cool to be, for us to be in the cybersecurity landscape at this time in human history.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, every time I see something crazy on my timeline, I'll send it to like my group chat. I'll be like, what a time to be alive. But usually it's like robot dogs with flamethrowers on their back and dystopic stuff, right? Like
that's just flat out scary.
Things. You got robots dancing and kicking people by accident, stuff like that. But it actually is like, in all seriousness, it is wild, like to be, it's kind of freeing, right? Like, get to spend less time doing the mundane so I can brainstorm about how to do the next thing, the bigger thing. But you have to just be careful. Cause even when I'm going through, right, I'm doing a lot of stuff to try to expand the business. Better manage my time, right? I'm trying to use those PM skills. I got the old school, brain book, like I used to have in the military, because I'm trying to get more efficient, right? Because I got a full-time job. I'm trying to start something up. So I will offload things to my AI assistant. I trained it. I gave it the material, right? And still, like you said, it will drift where I'll give it something like 99 times out of 100, it'll be close to what I want. I can refine it, or vice versa. I'll give it something I want it to refine, it refines it perfectly. But every now and then it'll shoot astray. And like
Mm.
you'll read it and you'll be like, where did you get this from? Where does this information come from? Like the other day, I was trying to do projections because I'm trying to figure out like what revenue could be in the next quarter and the following quarter, and the number was so high, and I was like, "Yo, triple check this. Like, is this realistic?" And then it came back and it said, "Not quite. Like, this is more
Wow.
like more in line with what it was just trying to make me happy." Like, no, I don't want. I want real. Don't make me happy. Make me look like a fool. I
Exactly.
go in this meeting, they be like, "You're not gonna make that money. That's not realistic."
That's what I was talking to a colleague about earlier today because we were talking about um, just how much you can do with AI, and not having like graphic design work that 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I would add this gentleman that I worked with for the last 10 years. I would call him up to do like little flyers and stuff. Don't have to do that anymore, and but it's a limit though, because people use like what you're describing. People now you imagine someone, and I've seen it, where they'll take some information. Oh, they're not a security person, but they can ask the questions in Chat GPT, and then they go and do a presentation. And I've been in the presentation, and I've had to you don't want to, because I know this
Right.
person. I don't want to challenge what they're talking about in terms of risk, but I know this isn't right. We should have had a conversation before this presentation,
Right.
but they use AI and they very confident or comfortable that, of course, AI knows everything. I mean, our ChatGPT knows everything. It's going to give me the right information, but no, like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, it
It knows
hallucinates.
exactly. It knows everything, even including the wrong information, because it
Exactly.
scraped it from somewhere.
Wants to please you.
Yeah, no, and those are all great points. So it's cool to see they're actually thinking about it though, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of concern that because you see in headlines, right? These larger companies are just dumping personnel, saying, "Oh, okay, AI replace it," and a lot of it's AI washing, right? They just want to reduce headcount, and they need a boogeyman, so you're going to say AI. But in some cases, like we had on the show, we talked about like they've reduced entire security departments. They're like, "Oh, AI handle it from here on out." You're like, like you're literally opening the door for the insider threat. Like you're letting the potential chaos inside of your network, right? With no human oversight.
No human oversight. How to see how that works out for him. I wish him the best, though. That's not. And
Right. They'll
then
be on in the headlines. This is what's going to happen.
exactly, and then they use these organizations have these vendor relationships. They have AI agents that
Right.
they're using. We don't know what they're doing in their network. Yeah, we got this letter of attestation that shows that they're NIST 800-171, and then there's SOC 2 Type 2, and they have a current pen test. Once again, all right, that was in May. It's December. What's changed? So we have enough problems, enough time we have to worry about what's going on inside of a person's organization, their own, to not, we don't want to govern another vendor's organization, but there has to be a middle ground where you can't just ignore it. That's
Right.
what I'm seeing is occurring sometimes too, Ryan. And I imagine you've seen this as well. That people, folks like use the term, put their head in the sand. They just want to ignore it because I understand it's a lot. It's too much over here. Like, what do I do with all these questions that I have? I don't have the answers or know how to get the answers. I
Right. And
don't
they
know.
want to trust and not verify.
Right. And the answer is, I would say a simple answer is hire consultants, cybersecurity consultants that have an understanding of AI, and or educate and really educating your staff. I would say start off with identity access management. Of course, we're an identity, like when they create an account on Ahmad.Austin. Okay, that's identity, but these AI agents, their identities. So let's look at it from an identity perspective. Look at it from a boundary and architectural perspective.
You bring up a good point, especially when it comes to like TPRM, right? Third party risk management. So I've done assessments earlier in my career when I got out of the military, where you're really trying to dig in deep, right? This is a small business to a mid-sized business. You're trying to make sure that all their I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And then you get to, okay, who are your third party vendors? They're like, okay, X, Y, and Z. Okay, can I see their, information security policy, their cyber policy? And then they'll give you like the table of contents. So they won't give it to me, but they'll give me this. You're like, I don't think you should trust them. Like they won't give you they're like, oh, it's got, it's an intellectual property situation. I'm like, I think they just don't have any content behind the table of contents. And then where are the artifacts, right? Like, are they actually doing what they say in their policy? Because then you can have a great policy and then just crazy, horrible procedures, right?
Yeah.
And I used to see that a lot, and they would be afraid to ask those questions because they're smaller than the company that is the vendor, basically, right? They're the smaller fish. So it's like, well, we don't really want to press on them.
Right,
and
right.
it's I keep telling Shannon, man, it's crazy on the side.
Yeah.
DoD is like, they didn't always do everything right, but in this regard, they're a slower ship that actually protects itself.
Yeah, that's the goal. I feel the same way. That's the gold standard, the DOD and the way that they do things. But you think about it, I was thinking about this before we got on our talk today. I think one of the reasons the DOD is the gold standard is because they can use their imagination and see, okay, this is what would happen if this cyber risk was exploited. Often companies, I don't believe, have the imagination I call it imagination to see, okay, understand fully what will happen, because unlike a physical security incident, you have something that blows up and you see people that are maimed, not to get too graphic, but you see people that are injured, lives that are lost.
Right.
Okay, we can understand that. We see it. It does something emotional to us even. Okay, let's protect against that. A cyber threat or cyber risk being exploited it's a lot to ask a human to use their imagination to understand the magnitude of that, because I can't see it.
Right.
The military.
That makes sense. Yeah. When your PII is gone, you're like, oh, well, they didn't hit my credit. So is it really a bad thing? Like, well, not yet.
I even saw this happen to this company right here, Company A, last month. That we're in the same space, but I think we're good. I haven't heard anything over here. It's different in the military because I remember working at the 26 NOS, and like I understood that pushing a patch, like on people think that don't know any better, like they haven't been dealt with Java patches. I think, it's just a Java patch, because it's so light, but they don't understand that could bring down a server. So we understand, working in organizations that you and I worked in the military, that bringing down a server that has some type of a drone system had some type of dependency on that, and that drone was manning or guarding a ship in enemy waters, in Iran or somewhere. So now that server has an outage. What that means to the sailors that it was protecting. See, we understand that. We're always, we're really talking about cyber risk, but in the military, it's simpler, I think, to apply that to how that will impact lives.
No, absolutely. And it's hard to even break it down. Like once you want to get a little bit more technical with it, right? You say, well, we don't know how this is going to affect all of the commands, right? Like everyone's built differently, even though we're all the same and everything's solely standard, right? But we all have different missions. So it's hard for me to kind of break that down sometimes, like even in my current capacity, because they're like, you're just talking about military jargon. You're like, well, no, like if you think about it, like each one of these things, right? Let's say like Air Mobility Command, they're flying planes, Air Combat Command, they're doing their thing when it comes to the warfighter. Now let's kind of take this to say, well, you have the department that does wire transfers, right? That's big money. You have the department that handles ATMs, right? Like people need to have the ability to grab money at the ATM. And if you don't roll these things out properly, what happens when they can't get money out of the ATM, right? What happens if somebody's trying to do a wire transfer and it does two of them instead of one? That could be thousands to millions of dollars duplicated. And it's hard to get sometimes them to get that understanding because it hasn't happened. And I try to say, like, no, you've lucked out. This hasn't happened. You're not a use case right now. Do you want to?
I'm about to use that one, Ryan. You're not a use case right now.
Yeah, but do you want to be, right?
Right.
You know what? Reputational damage?
You and I, we should come up with something using AI where you picture everything you just described, but creating a video like part of
Right.
the presentation that shows the person going through this and then actually shows the stakeholders losing money and
Yeah.
then, shows them, uh, now they're driving a, 86, Color
Right.
Supreme.
Right. Yeah. They go from CEO to, yeah, driving a hoopty.
So exactly. That's what we need to do. If you can't use your imagination, we're gonna
Right.
create
Here's a
it for
video
you.
to help you. Yeah. Here's a training aid to show you how this can go awry. But no,
Like
I
you're
think
onto
those are all
something.
good points. Yeah. Again, like you coming from being a veteran, jumping into IT and making that big jump to cyber and also those huge leaps into starting your own business and going forth and conquering, right? I think that's great for the audience. I think it shows that it's possible, right? He can do it. Not necessarily say it's easy because it's not. Like I can only imagine uh my leap is after, the military and I'm trying to do a soft launch. Like I'm very risk averse. Like if you talk to
Mhm.
anybody, I'm very risk averse. So I'm trying to soft launch things, right? I'm trying to slowly get in here, network, meet the people, figure out what they need, all the things. But to come from being, 5, 8, 10 years in to making that leap,
Yeah.
that's incredible to be able to make that jump and be so successful for so long. So I think that's a really good example. And now you're dropping books on people, right? Now I'm going to give you some of this. Well, not give it to you, but I'm going to give you a means to get some of this knowledge to do what I'm doing or absolutely think ahead. So I think that's all great. So I want to commend you
Thank
on
you.
that.
I appreciate that, brother.
But it sounds like you have no free time. And I always like to end the podcast on what are you doing outside of all these amazing things you're doing at work, right? So again, you're, in the cybersecurity space, you're leading, you're an author, you're a public speaker, you're coaching. But what are you doing to, either refill your tank for yourself or to unwind and relax?
Well, I appreciate you giving me a chance to answer that because 2 years ago, I would have been hard. It would have been hard for me to say anything.
Right.
But now, actually, at the age of 44, 43, I decided to start training Kung Fu.
Okay.
So I'm 45 now, right? So, but a good friend of mine, Omar Ali, who business partner, he's been in Kung Fu like 18 years now. I started getting back and, working the heavy bag and stuff that, in my basement. I really, cause I did a little boxing when I was younger. And I know from dealing with Omar that, all right, it's something that'll far surpass my like this boxing skill that I have or this little
Right.
skill is kung fu. Well, I need to learn that. So you imagine going in at 43, just like when we were in the military, imagine just going to basic training all over again at 43. It's quite humbling.
Yeah. So I'm 42 and I cannot imagine. As you said, Kung Fu, I'm like, oh man, that's going to hurt.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, the body, they don't really hit you or anything, but just things that your muscles aren't used to. It's Wing Chun, so it's a lady's story goes. I make it short. A lady, a nun, she created the style. So it teaches you not to use like we try to use our whole life, our strength. Teaches you not to use that. So kind of turn
Mhm.
off your strength. So that's pretty cool to learn how to do that. So that's what I
That's
do most
awesome.
of the time.
So man, you even inspirational in your hobbies. Like I can only imagine. So when I was younger growing up, right? So I'm from Buffalo. So we had like if you go on Bailey, we had a bunch of different like taekwondo, karate, like different dojos. But the problem being, when you don't have money, you can't go train. And then
Mm,
what I found out is when I did get money, I didn't have time to go train. So
mm,
now you're telling me at the 42, I can go in there
yes.
and pick up some of these skills and not die.
Yes. Yeah, that's the cool thing about Wing Chun is that it is so, like I say, it is so deadly, as far as the strikes and stuff, it's not meant to spar. So, nobody's
Okay.
going to hit you. Yeah, you're going to be well equipped to.
Okay. I like that. I didn't start it, but I'm going to finish it.
That's right. Oh, yeah, you'll be well equipped to be quite effective if one ever needs to in his life.
All right. All right.
We'll talk
That's
more about
that's
that.
dope. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's dope. So before I land this plane, so I want to make sure everybody knows. So it's Ahmed Austin. He is the founder of Cy3. You can reach him at, what's the website to get to your offerings?
It is CY and then the number 3 security.com.
There it is. And then you're also dropping a book. It should be out before Christmas. So
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm looking at a harder date, December 20th,
okay.
Boundaryless Enterprise. It'll be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you want the e-copy, of course, on Amazon. Want the hard copy, you can get it on Barnes & Noble. And on my LinkedIn profile, I'll post the information. I'll definitely share it with you as well, Ryan.
Yeah, no, awesome. I'll definitely share that with the audience, and I'll pick up a copy. Right, I always like to pick up the copy of all of the guest books, except for I haven't gotten all of Tim Tipton Jr.'s yet because this dude has like 4 or 5 books. Like he's a writing machine. I'm trying to get another one out next year, but like he's getting it right. But I say it to say like I'm collecting them. Right, I want to have like I got a Christmas tree behind me now because the holidays, but I want to have a bookshelf of the books of all my guests is the goal for 2027.
I like that.
And make some moves, right? Change my location so I can have a bookshelf that makes sense.
I hear you.
No, it was a dope conversation. I greatly appreciate you being on the show. Again, everyone can check it out every week. It is on WDJY 99.1 FM in the Atlanta metro area, as well as worldwide on TuneIn. And then you can also listen to us on your podcast platform of choice. And then who's to say what's going to happen in 2026, but the audience continues to grow, and I greatly appreciate all of you for listening. Hit me up personally. I'm at Ry Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me on LinkedIn and a bunch of other places. And then you can also check me out at my branded website, RyanWilliamsSenior.com. And then you can check out RAM, which is my company that holds the book, The Other Side of the Firewall, as well as our services at ramcyber.io or theothersideofthefirewall.com. Stay safe, stay secure.